We've got some tech that could solve a lot of your diseases. Might even add some years to your age. We could be very helpful. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no law in the universe that says one civilization can help another. But we're not going to bother with it if you're going to keep the nukes. That this whole meshigash that really gets underway when we drop those bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki ends with open contact and a lot of discussions and interactions between our leadership and theirs. However, by text, by email, maybe sitting down together, I don't know, doesn't matter to me. And there will be a lot of things to talk about, of which could be very interesting and productive for us. But for them, number one is the nukes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two things that they're going to probably present to us in those initial discussions, which we will be informed about, unless the government is stupid enough to say, well, you know, you don't have a need to know what the...
You don't have a need to know.
It's not going to work. That's not going to work. Is this: Dear Earth, understand, we're not idiots. And there's no way in hell you're leaving the solar system with nuclear weapons on an interstellar craft and heading out to God knows where, maybe some poor planet that's where you were back in the 11th century, and flying around, orbiting the planet, and maybe accidentally dropping a nuke. We're not going to let that happen. And then the second, and then somebody may respond, screw you. You will take our nukes only from our dead hands, you know. And they'll say, okay, fine. So you won't be leaving the solar system, but you want to keep the nukes. Well, okay. Then there's our second point. You may have noticed that you've dug yourself into quite a hole. Right? Not for everybody. The super rich billionaires are doing quite fine. Everybody else is like teetering on the edge of the volcano. You got 8 billion people, which is about maybe 5 to 10 times more than you really ought to have. Again, not trying to suggest anybody should be guilty about being alive, but you know, you don't have the resources for 8 billion people. Okay, you should have thought about that. And so you got a lot of trouble there. But your emotional IQ and your overall mental capabilities have not kept up with the technological trends, and so you're in deep water. I mean, you have swum out into the deep water, into the riptides, and you're going to drown. You're way ahead of your skis. Not trying to be judgmental. You're just advancing and learning and what have you, and you got a hold of some tech and you move forward and you're doing your thing and making a lot of money. But you're in deep trouble. We can help. We have knowledge and technology that could solve a lot of your problems. We've got some tech that could solve a lot of your diseases. Might even add some years to your age. We could be very helpful. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no law in the universe that says one civilization can help another. But we're not going to bother with it if you're going to keep the nukes. And I feel incredibly strongly about that. Not as some sort of deep belief in that sense, not in some sort of ideological utopian desire. For most of my life, I've been almost certain we're going to have a nuclear war, and I think we still can. We could still have one. We could have one tomorrow. No, I'm simply saying that when you examine the totality, or at least a good deal, across a broad spectrum, not down deep, but across a broad spectrum of the history of this phenomena, that's the conclusion I come up with. And I'm prepared to defend it against other options. There are infinite possibilities, but the other ones that have been brought to my attention don't fit the history. They just don't fit the evidence. Now, there may be some more evidence that I'll learn, and I may have to modify my assessment, and I'm happy, and I will do so. And I'm also not saying that once we have confirmation disclosure, we're not going to learn some things that are going to be a little upsetting. And I'm not saying that after we have open contact, we may not learn some things that are upsetting. What else is new? What else is new? All right.
Right.
The human race has been learning upsetting things since it first together and created a Homo sapiens sapien baby. Nothing new about that. And we've adapted and we've survived and we've prevailed. I think that will happen in this case. And we will be living under a new set of understandings and circumstances, and we will have to incorporate those into our worldview, which is one of the things that Danny's going to be working on with his new think tank, the New Paradigm Institute. And I will be helping in my small way with the Paradigm Research Group nonprofit think tank, which I'm very shortly about to file the papers on so that I can raise tax deductible donations. I can't wait. And I'll be based in Washington, just like Danny, in the National Press Building. What is the point of this? This is why Danny and I and my other colleagues have been involved in this most of this time. It wasn't just to finally get told there's ETs here. We've known there ETs here since we were kids.
Right.
It's to be part of the post-disclosure world. If you have an activist mentality, being part of the world post a paradigm shift of that magnitude is like winning the Super Bowl and the NBA championship and the Powerball all at once. I mean, at the same time, it doesn't get better than this. And that's somewhat selfish because, well, it's selfish in the sense that I believe that I'm here to serve and I get to serve a lot. And when you serve a lot, you get praise and people like you. And who doesn't want that?
Do we, at that point, hit the stars? Or do you think that's going to occur? We're going to be able to get out there and travel amongst and
Absolutely. If we have the open contact, if the message it gets across to our leaders, and they decide that there's a whole galaxy out there that we could engage, like Star Trek, and new things to learn. Technology will allow us to feed, clothe, and house all the people that look up to us as leaders and all that. And that the idea of spending 10, 12, 15 trillion dollars a year on war and intelligence and manning bases and all that other crap, when you could be spending on food, housing, clothing, technology, and whatever, that's where we need to go. And that the idea of primacy of one race over another or one nation over another or one society over another is stupidity. Right? Because guess what? There's civilizations all across the universe, which is really big, and across our galaxy, which is also quite big. And so none of you are at the top of the food order, period. Just be happy that you're here at all and work together. If disclosure gets us to that, and therefore, and part of that includes, it doesn't have to totally include, but part of that includes getting rid of the nukes, then we will be greenlit to build our starships. We might even get a little extra boost so we can get them built sooner. And we will leave the solar system and we will become Galassians. By the way, I'm going to show you something. Hang on. This sign has been in my office for 26 years. Shortly after I set up let me see if I'm going to do this. Hang on. I was an arcade guy, and I still don't play computer games because I know that once I start, it's over for me. But I did play Galaxian. I liked it, so I played Galaxian, put a lot of quarters in, but then that was gone. Well, they disappeared anyway, but whatever. So years go by, and I enter the field in '96, and so I set up an office in Bethesda. I had a whole attic to myself, plenty of space, and I started going to garage sales and fitting it out very nicely and very cheaply. And I went to a Bethesda garage sale, and this thing was sitting on the lawn. I picked it up for $5. It was a little beat up. I took it home, got one of those black marker pens, and kind of cleaned it up, made it look better. And I put it in the office. And every day I looked at it. And at some point, looking back on my entire life, which has been odd and not conventional, also not anywhere near as productive as it could have been, but ended up in a good place. I realized that, I could have been a Protestant. Nah. Could have been a Baptist. Nah. Methodist. Nah. Could have been a Libertarian. Nah. Or Democrat, Republican. No. I'm not an Aryan. I have never, or an American even. I am an American by law, and I don't have any problem with that. but I've never saw myself as an Ian or an Ann or any of that. I've never felt part of the various institutions and groups and what have you that is in the world that I was born into. But when I looked at that sign, I said, I know one thing I am. I'm a Galaxian. We're all Galaxians. Why? Because my hunch is that the galaxy is the fundamental political unit of the universe. And by that I mean this: politics is an adjunct to sentience.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't get sentience until you don't get politics until you get sentience. You got two sentient beings in the same place at the same time, you've got politics. Is husband and wife, you got politics. Dad and son, doesn't matter. Two friends, doesn't matter. There's politics, two people together, and more people, the more politics. And so you've got politics at the personal level, and then you've got it at the neighborhood level, neighborhood watch. You've got it at the city level, the county level, the state level. You've got national politics. Then you've got global politics. And if there was another civilization in our galaxy, and there may have been on Mars millions of years ago, we'd have solar system politics. No problem. And then after that, you've got Galaxian politics. Star Trek. And it may stop there. And here's why. But I'm not positive. Our galaxy is, I think, 80 billion light years across. I have to check the number. It's a big number. It's huge. It's beyond huge. All right. And so if you are a civilization and you want to interact and have company and explore and whatever, you could spend millions and millions of years exploring this galaxy and you couldn't explore it all. And so the idea that, well, why don't we go over to the next galaxy and see what's so, you don't need to. Plus, it is far away.
Mm-hmm.
It's very far away, even further away than the farthest reach of our galaxy. And so it's very possible that that's where it stops. But I'm not positive, but here's why. It's interesting the way the universe is constructed in a way, but if you think about Earth, which has a diameter of 8,000 miles, if you had another Earth that was as far away from our Earth as the nearest galaxy is from us, it would be 8 diameters away, or 16, half diameters, right?
Right.
And that's only 64,000 miles. That's only a third of the way to the moon. That's how close Andromeda is. Andromeda is 16. It's 8 diameters of our galaxy across. It's in that sense not far. Okay, but it's still 8 times 80 billion light years. I mean, it's a long ways. I have a feeling that the politics stops at the edge of the galaxy. That's enough. And some galaxies are probably in places where the nearest galaxy may be 1,000 diameters away. And so if that's the case, then that's the ultimate political unit. And so if you live long enough, or you come late enough in the evolution of a species, you get to be part of the ultimate political reality, and that's Galaxian. And you are, by definition, whether you want to be or not, a Galaxian. And the Galaxian transcends all races, species, creeds, religions, special groups, societies, you name it. It transcends them all. You are a Galaxian. Now, how you interact within that context is up to you. I love this. And so, and I said I was weird, right? And I am in that sense.
It's all good.
But that is why Roddenberry, who had a lot of inside connections, there's a lot of speculation and a bit of evidence that he had the kind of connections that could have tipped him off about the government's interaction, or at least engagement of this phenomena. But he also was a contactee. And it's logical that the trauma of World War II, coupled with the evolution of nuclear weapons, almost expected, triggered an explosion in obscurity, secrecy,
Mm-hmm.
surveillance, spying, intelligence, all that stuff. The downside to what I call the age of obscurity, from 1945 really to
Mm-hmm.
2013, we're about to enter the post-disclosure world, which I think I will call, hopefully, uh, the age of transparency. Is that what by maintaining and developing that much secrecy, you undermine the confidence of people in government so greatly that the outcome actually may be more dangerous, more. Uh, in other words, it's worse to go that way. In other words, transparency and truth has a way of working out the best in the end. There's often short-term uncomfortability. I get it.
Damage and uncomfortable. I got you.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
that. When you're faced with telling somebody a truth that you know is going to be a problem, you know that the way to avoid that momentary in the moment problem is to lie. But
Mm-hmm.
then 7 weeks later, terrible things happen. This is so universal. It's fundamental. The government just wasn't prepared to go that way. They could have told us everything in 1948, and I think we would have handled it just fine. And the world would have known about the ET presence very quickly. And while they didn't have all the movies, they would have watched hundreds of movies about ETs and films, CGI films that take them out in the galaxy and fly around, all that stuff. They were pretty sophisticated people. I mean, they were serious people, well educated. They would have all known about the ET presence in 1948. And I would make the case that knowledge, that truth, might have altered the behavior of nations and people in such a way we may never have had a nuclear arms race. I think that we're going to handle it extremely well, and that the doors for a lot of things are going to open, and the opportunity for some major change is going to happen, and the activist movement to take advantage of that is already forming literally as we speak. And so I'm optimistic, and I want to live another 10 years at least. I haven't always felt that way.
But is this a good thing? Is it a good thing for humanity? Is it a good thing for the economy? Is it a good thing for the future of this planet to know that we are not alone in the universe?
Let's just say that historians will be happy to tell us that one day, if they live long enough, or if they come back from the future and tell us. When it comes to things of this magnitude, certainty about how it'll all work out. When they invented the combustion engine and suddenly we started seeing those little things with wheels rolling around, a lot of people were saying this is not going to end well, right? The horse and buggy industry is going to collapse, and these things go too fast. They're going to kill each other and whatever. And of course, it didn't matter. There was nothing going to stop the combustion engine and the rise of the car. But there was some truth back then. Why? Because all those cars generated massive amounts of exhaust and polluted the city skies and gave people cancer. Not to mention all the people that flew through windshields because it took them, I don't know how many decades before they could put a seatbelt in them. No, the way the world works is you move forward and you try to do it in a way that fits your moral universe. Not everybody has the same moral universe, but history is a giant river heading in one direction, and we're swimming in it or boating in it. And we can kind of maneuver a little bit, right? But the idea that we can direct it, not a chance. And so it doesn't really matter, ultimately, whether this is going to work out or not. It's going to happen, period. And it's our responsibility, if we care, to see if we can turn or at least maneuver on this historical time with what is happening and make it be beneficial, positive, constructive, not destructive, as we view the world. That's the best we can do, but that's plenty, and it's fun. And I welcome people to join in, and let's see how it turns out. Was humanity ready for relativity, quantum mechanics, the nuclear bombs, uh, airplanes? No, maybe not. Some were, some weren't. Doesn't matter. We are moving forward in time, and you simply can't stop this river history simply because you need to take a break. In other words, I need to stop the river from flowing here. Going to go to the shore. Going to lie down for a while, have a soda, take a drink, whatever, rest, get some sun, and I'll ask the river, start again, and I'll get back in. That's not the way it's going to work. What's happened since World War II, where the U.S. probably reached its absolute peak of gravitas, prestige, at least amongst all of our allies, and maybe even some Russians and Chinese, it was an extraordinary accomplishment. We were a major factor in defeating a pretty nasty Axis power, a set of Axis powers, and we created some amazing technology to end that war. Okay, and everybody applauded. Fantastic. Thank you, America. We were rocking. Business was coming back, was all good. But then things started to go south. And what's happened since then is that, unfortunately, enough dysfunction has taken place to undermine the confidence and the trust in the U.S. democracy, to really threaten its fundamental existence almost. At the same time, the world was also getting into deep trouble as well. And people are really tired. They're frustrated and they're tired. Unless you're older than 77, you have lived every single moment of your life during a Cold War and nuclear arms race, every single second. And during that time, there have been dozens and dozens and dozens of wars, just not a nuclear war. Huge numbers of people have been slaughtered. Okay. All kinds of terrible things happening. And as the century moved on, the ability for us to know all about that became better every year. In other words, you couldn't just just stay at home and just try to shut the world out and do your thing and not get upset. No. All the tech and the communications brought the world to you. And so we got to experience it every decade, even more visually, more intensely. The world's a mess, and now we carry that mess around inside our head, rent-free. We're incredibly stressed out, particularly in the advanced countries, the more developed countries. Huge numbers of people are on drugs just to keep calm. Also, drugs to deal with illnesses that are being created by stress, which they have to take drugs to deal with. And we are abusing drugs, what I mean by, quote, recreational drugs, profoundly. I mean, the addiction is really quite extraordinary. I'm not casting shade here. I think a lot of people are getting addicted to drugs because what else can they do? They've got to somehow escape all these things that are happening, pressing forward. It's not easy. Suicide rates are up, opiate use is up, and on and on and on. And we are just unbelievably stressed. There's an article in I think, New York Times or Washington Post just yesterday, which I love. I just wanted to see it. Let me tell you, it was an article basically about how we are all so stressed and how stress is killing us from the inside out. Thank you, Washington Post. I really appreciate it. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going is that the distrust in the United States government, sadly, since the end of World War II, has just collapsed. It has been fed by huge, colossal blunders, lies, wars, misrepresentations, and massive abuse of secrecy. And that has fed conspiracy thinking, which is part of human nature. We are a cautious species. We want to survive. We tend to create conspiracies as a defensive mechanism, meaning if I can figure this out and I know it's a threat, then I can maybe avoid it. And so I'm constantly looking for potential threats. I mean, that's our nature. constantly for potential threats. And so in this complex society, the ability to come up with conspiratorial explanations for everything and anything has been manifest in full. And it has the ability now to spread like wildfire. Some conspiracy theory can start, I don't know, in San Fernando Valley in somebody's basement, get out on Twitter, get picked up on TikTok, travel to a few other countries, and the next thing you know, it's a major meme, and it's being written up in serious papers. This is the world we're in now. But the public interest, which is growing like crazy, is a threat. And so what we need to do is to just tamp that down, shut that off, get the public out of this, whatever it's going to take, right? I didn't know fully what they were going to have to do, and they didn't know what they were going to be up against. But this was, again, 1953. There were like 3 networks in black and white, ABC, NBC, CBS, 15 minutes of news a night. Nobody had a cell phone, and it was okay. And so they decided, let's just go that way. They could have disclosed in 53. They could have disclosed in 58. They didn't. What they chose to do was embark on a truth embargo. It goes down through history in direct parallel with the nuclear arms race, which obviously upset a lot of people and created a mutual assured destruction umbrella under which you couldn't have a nuclear war, but you could have all the proxy wars you wanted, and hundreds of millions of people killed. So that was the government's decision, right or wrong. And so I hold them responsible. So what am I trying to get at? Look, we're winning. The truth embargo is ending. So many people inside government now know that the ETs are here and are willing to even engage it. It's simply impossible to turn around and go backwards. And they are doing pretty much all the right things. And if you just push aside all your potential conspiratorial interpretations and your anger and frustration and everything the government's done to make you mad, and there's plenty of things, if you can just kind of shut that out and view it just for what it is, it's possible to see that we're winning. But a lot of people are not able to do that yet, and I respect that. Okay, my job is to sort of present what I think is the proper interpretation, so people could more easily go, okay, I get it, I'm with it, and instead of constantly attacking every little thing they can find, focus on the bigger picture and start telling the people that are trying to do this, we thank you, appreciate it, keep it up, it's good, okay, we like that. That's my job. One podcast at a time, Dave. So that's first thing I wanted to tell you today. All those things that you just mentioned, your frustrations, your concerns, your unable to accept or believe, dismissing, I get that. I understand it. But I'm suggesting that if you could just shut that out and pay attention for a little bit, I can make the case, well, hey, you should be celebrating, man, because we're about to get what we've been seeking since 1947 in one way or another, and that is the confirmation of the extraterrestrial presence.